Papers passed. This will shock you guys. You know, you think you've got all this and that, but in reality, it's all falsehood. Okay, papers passed. Now, they reset and they set everything up from New Zealand through these events. So we're talking about by year, 1839. Here we go. Okay. I think it's the next year. Right, 18th of August, or was it 18th of April? Let's have a look here. Here we go. This is where they got the authority to set up their colony and to exercise British law when I showed you last, that disclosure. So that Port Nicholson deed of purchase, they used that and they ratified it right here. Now, here we go. So ratification and extension of the above contract by sovereign chiefs of Port Nicholson. Now, because they purchased that block, Port Nicholson block, which is from Wellington all the way up to Wanganui, they became sovereign chiefs because they became landowners through that deed of purchase. So sovereignty is either ceded by cession or purchase. So let me read it out. Ratification and extension of the above contract by the sovereign chiefs of Port Nicholson. We, the sovereign chiefs of the district, now just stand from that district, of Wanganui, Aotea, or Port Nicholson, being moved thereto by the representation of Colonel Wakefield, President of the Council of the White People, who have settled in the foresaid district, and by a consideration of the interests of all the inhabitants. Now listen to the district and inhabitants, because this affects you too, and everyone worldwide. All of the said district, as well native as otherwise. See, they introduced this native word in now. Do hereby ratify and confirm the within agreement, and do declare that the same shall have the force of law within our territories. Did you see just what happened? Did you get that?
I'm the only one who's got a microphone.
Oh, did you get that?
Just read it again for everybody else.
Okay.
Just read it again for everybody else.
We the sovereign chiefs of the district of Wanganui, Aotea, or Port Nicholson, being moved thereto by the representation of Colonel Wakefield, President of the Council of the White People, who have settled in the foresaid district, and by a consideration of the interests of all the inhabitants, now all the inhabitants of the said district, as well as native as otherwise, do hereby ratify and confirm the within agreement, and do declare that the same shall have the force of law within our territories. So you got a district, they've extended it to the territories, our territories, and shall be binding upon all parties residing within the same, subject nevertheless to the modifications and stipulations hereinafter mentioned. Now, first, that the council within named, we were talking about a name now, within named, shall continue in office for the space of 1 year from the 1st of January 1840. 1st of January. This is before the treaty was signed. And that at the expiration of that period, a fresh council. Now, this is where Reverend Samuel Hyde's report and proposed bill for council comes in. Shall be elected for the space of 1 year by the votes of the majority of the male inhabitants of the colony. Hey, it was a territory, it was a district, a territory, now a colony. We're talking about franchising here. When you're talking about one colony, are you not talking about every colony? We're talking about one territory. Are we talking about all territories? Same with the districts. Not legally disqualified. You see what they've done here? They've set up their colony and then they mirrored everything back the way they came, through every district, every territory, through every colony. Now, when we get further into their ratification of that agreement, they changed the status of the inhabitants to native inhabitants. Now you've all become a slave. Here we go. Where's that native inhabitants? So when I'm saying that yes, we were once a state of New South Wales, but after they ratified this agreement, it turned around.
But what's the state of New South Wales? I'm only aware of that being from like 1900. But you're saying that it was earlier as well?
Yes, it was. See, here's where the native inhabitants come in. They changed the status of the inhabitants from the beginning up the top. Now you're all native inhabitants.
It's almost like, as far as the natives are concerned, that they weren't classed as inhabitants because they said all inhabitants and then they made a distinction of native.
Yes, they introduced the native, then they joined it together, native inhabitants. See how cunning they are when they write their documents. They create a joinder as they go through the document.
Now, can I just say something here, and it's a little bit offbeat, but this what you're reading demonstrates it. When we've been talking with Jason, and you too, we talk about artificial intelligence, AI, writing the legislation. Now, when you read this, and people just say, oh, that's just legalese, but it is so cumbersome to read. The order of words, it's like it's not created, and I'm not using the Black's Law dictionary version, but it's like it's not created by a human being. It's, to me, it doesn't follow any order that we would normally have in, like if you're reading a book or you're reading even a reference book, the way the words are put together, you've got to read it, and you've really got to read it and read it again to work out what it's saying, because the way certain words are grouped together in the orders, it doesn't follow what we're used to. And I can relate it to an interpretation done by Google of another language, that it gets broken up. So do you mind if I just ask you, when we have the conversations about AI and creating the legislation and that sort of thing, how do you explain that reference of AI? You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Yeah. If we go right back to Samaria, when they started writing on the cuneiform on the tablets.
Yep.
And before that, when man was creating art.
Yes.
In the caves, that imagery, you know, worshipping graven images that they refer to in the Bible, was that art.
Yeah.
Now that art came in with the hybridization of the colonization of planet Earth with our ancestors who came down in the book of Enoch in relation to the Anunnaki,
Yes.
and that AI was to control everything on the planet, and that's what I'm referring to with the name.
Okay, now just to sort of participate with what you're talking about, and the reason why I brought it up is when you look at the cuneiform script, so you look at hieroglyphics, whatever, and there's certain shapes, and you can look at it and we were told, oh, that's because they were just using like something akin to it, like a chisel. So you put one mark in one way, and then next one you have two angles on it, this, that, and the other thing. When you look at circuit boards inside a computer, some of them look like all of those different hieroglyphs all joined up.
Yeah,
It really looks like that's, and it's almost like when they did the cuneiform script, that they took apart a circuit board and into its separate pieces to communicate outside of the artificial intelligence. And now I don't know that that's right, but that's when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, you're going to be kidding me. That looks too much like it to not be it.
And everything that we're reading is all part of that AI. It's been here forever.
Yeah. So that's going to be hard for some people to get their head around.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's, I think, I'm not sure, and I might have the book wrong, but I think it was the Book of Enoch, when Jesus was being tempted by Satan, and he was taken from place to place. And when you read it, you think, well, how'd they get from there to there? And how'd they get on top of that? Yeah, and the only way they could have done that was by flying. And I'm not one for thinking that they had wings.
Yep.
Not attached to their back. As I've said to people, you'd have to eat so many Weet-Bix to be able to flap them to like to carry me around. I've got 100 kilograms. That's a lot of flapping. That's a lot of energy. So there's interesting when there's certain books that have been removed from the Bible or weren't included in originally, and then when you read them, when you find them, it's some of them could be a science fiction movie.
Well, there was a movie called Garm Wars, and it talked about these tribes of fighting each other until they just about decimated each other, and there were druids, and a lot of this fighting was going on about in relation to God's name, and they went on this journey. Watch it sometime, and they found the serpent in the Garden of Eden, and the serpent was saying to them, all you were wanting was the name of God. God is the name. The name of everything that's been named. Look around you, everything's got a name.
Yep.
That's God. But that's been in the world, in the name. But to be of the world, it's a no name. That's what we're trapped in, is the name. Brilliant plan, eh?
It is, and it's very interesting, and it's interesting the different concepts that come in that start to bind all these different things together. You'd think you've got separate streams of knowledge, and the more we go through it, they're converging. Or they always were, but our knowledge was away. And now as we get more complete picture of the earth, things come more together.
Yes.
So
everything expands in the name. Now we're just coming right down to the name itself.
Yes. Now Simon's had his hand up for a little while. I'll just ask Simon to unmute himself.
Yeah, thanks. Kind of ties in what I started off with. Well, it definitely does. And there's one thing, like the inverse of the demise of the crown, would that be the resurrection? And if so, is that right? What do you think?
Yes, the ascension, the resurrection.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then I'm thinking so you go along and you go into a court, for instance, right? And they want the name, you know. So in the end, they play the little game. They won't listen to you unless you use a name. So you use a name. How do you resurrect yourself then? Because you've gone to demise, then You go, righto, now I've told you the name, I went to demise, now I'm going to resurrect myself. And just throw it back at them.
Okay, and that's where everyone's been working on different processes to come out of the beast, you know, or the whore of Babylon. So they talk about, you know, the whore of Babylon, or you know what the whore of Babylon is? There's a legal term called dehors, and dehors is to come out of the will, to come out of the contract, come out of the trust. The whole of Babylon is a trust operating in the name. So everyone's trying to get out. What we realize is that, heck, we have to go in to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And where we entered through the name was through the bondswoman, which was our mother, through her enrollment at the doctors. So if you're registered, if you're not registered, it's enrolled at the doctor, and you move from one doctor to another, you've got to fill in a form. And I've looked at the form and I've filled it in many times, and I've updated my information at the doctors, which is the primary health organisation, here's the Health Sector Transfer Act, transfer of assets, liabilities and rights to the World Bank, through the World Health Organization. It starts at your doctor. So everyone's trying these processes to come out. Well, that's where it starts. And when you look at the form, they actually ask you if you know that there's two individuals, you be able to fill it in correctly with using the right words to identify yourself. Now, what I've had to realize in the last week or two is that all these forms have name on it. So I've had to cross out all the names.
Uh-huh.
If the form's got a name on it, cross it out. And if they want your identity, put in there no name, because there's the no name, because what we did is we copyrighted the RG9, which has no name on it, under a Crown copyright, to take ownership of the no name, which is the Crown. Does that make sense?
Well, so we could also, under the styles manual, with the words like the name, we could also put that in brackets, couldn't we?
Well, no name seems to be the one, because you're not the name.
No, but when you talk about the forms, where the form's got name.
Oh, yeah.
So we just put it in brackets, and that removes it.
Oh, just put an X for it. X. That cancels out, doesn't it?
So you obliterate it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, that's a bit different. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Can I clarify that? Like, if the form says name, as is like you're supposed to put your name in there, like has the word name, and then you're supposed to fill the name in. Yeah. You're saying you cross out name.
Name. Yeah. If they're asking for full name, cross out the name. If they're asking for family name, cross out the name. If they're asking for first or middle name, cross out the name in the form, because you're putting your information into the form and you're still identifying yourself as the debtor.
Yeah, I get that. So then where you put the no name? Where do you just put no name?
When you put the no name in, there's no name full column Crown.
Okay.
So now, why do you put full colon Crown? What does the full colon stand for?
Well, it just separates you. There's two separate items there.
Yeah, not with you on that one. So I would put full colon to be for the Crown, or of the Crown, or by the Crown. So
I hear you, and they can't hear that syntax.
So, but they also don't read full colons.
Yeah.
What about Crown in right of and then the name?
Well, if you look in a lot of forms too, they ask for a physical address or a residential address, don't they? or mailing address. See, that gives you these two options in regards to where do you live, which is a
Or your residential address.
you have a mailing address, a physical address and a mailing address, or in those different combinations. But the physical address, now it sounds the same as fiscal. Physical and fiscal, they sound the same. They can be easily mixed up. So I put in there the Crown and Right of New Zealand in the physical, because how would you like to be addressed? Oh, the Crown and Right of New Zealand, thank you very much. What's your mailing address? Oh, it's different from that one. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So they provide all these options in every form that you fill in every day. You didn't realize the nature of the relationship to be able to fill in the form correctly. But specifically the enrollment at the doctors, because that updates the whole system. So where I was living before, moved over to Teams here, gave me the opportunity to go and update my enrollment information. I've had to make an appointment today to renew my driver's license. So I've found the forms to fill those in correctly, but I need a medical certificate. So because I've already enrolled down there and went down and made an appointment, and she gave me the appointment slip for my appointment, and it's addressed to Crown and care of the Crown and Right of New Zealand. Now from there, I should be able to complete these other forms and go and update my driver's license. And with that, I should be able to go and update my passport.
So have you attempted to update your birth certificate?
I did. I went through it. I'll just jump out of here. I went through a stage there where, under the Privacy Act, you have the right to correct your personal information. And I edited the information on the birth certificate, and I used that to update my information with Social Security. That's how I got surname Crown on my Centrelink benefits paid to the Crown, and 18 plus cards for surname Crown. But that was in the early stages there. Now, I took that in the Birth, Deaths and Marriages and the Privacy Act. It says that you have to provide a statement of those corrections to any government agency. So I did it at Social Security. It works right there. Went to Birth, Deaths and Marriages, all right? I wanted them to print out a copy with all the corrections on it and to be attached to the public record. And after a month, went in and followed up, and the manager at Birth, Deaths and Marriages in Manukau was on the phone, 3 separate phone calls, right? One to the integrity team, which is the bar association down in Wellington, one to the business team, and one to the corporate team operating in a Birth, Deaths and Marriages. Because they're trading in securities or, registrable events. And they finally came back and they said, oh, this is not our product.
This is not our product.
This is not our product. They couldn't do it. Well, they're correct, because it's not their product. It's our product. It's your personal information on that physical piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't reproduce it because it didn't belong to them.
Mm-hmm.
Once the Crown went onto it, it became yours. So I was using that birth certificate to go and update my information there. But the doctors is where you got to start first.
Okay. So does it matter? I haven't been to a doctor for say 20 years.
You'll
Does
be
that make-
enrolled. Yep.
So it's at some point when you got put on their books as such,
You'd be
as a
somewhere
patient, as a registered patient.
as a registered patient, yes.
Okay. Now, I just noticed before that Boris had his hand up for a question. Did you want to ask a question, Boris?
No, the opportunity is gone. I was just going to quote you something out of the Bible regarding the stuff, but it'll just back it up. So keep
Well,
going.
you can still quote it if it's top of mind.
Okay, John, Crown was talking about the word. John 1.1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
Mm-hmm.
That's
So,
the beginning of everything, a word.
yeah.
So we're fighting over words, and there is nothing else out there.
Yeah. Okay.
No worries.
Thank you, Boris.
Nothing else out there.
Okay, go ahead, Crown. Oops, hang on, you're muted somehow or other. If you'd like to unmute yourself.
Yep.
There you go.
Good.
Sorry about
Yes. Yes. So when they say your word is your bond, that's literal, isn't it?
that. Mm-hmm.
The word being your name.
Mm.
So the no name is what's on the RG9, and that's what we did with the Crown copyright under the Copyright Act here, because it's got a reference to the no name. Where no name, well, God isn't supposed to have a name. It is a word, but not a name yet. Where no name purporting to be that of the author appeared on copies of the work as published or on the work when it was made, the work qualifies for copyright. So what we had to do with those instruments, going back to that notification of birth with no name on it, and we went to the copyright.
So it's just interesting when you talk about with the word is your bond.
Yeah.
So it's the word that binds you, but the bond can
Yeah.
also be a financial instrument.
It is operating in your name, as I just showed everyone.
Yeah. So I'm just looking though, but it binds you, so it contracts you,
Yes.
and it's a bond which is a financial. So it's got more than that word. One word has got more than one meaning, but all of it means that.
So where is anyone not contracted? You're already in contract. Does that sound right? Everyone's contract.
So when Pacific Diva was speaking earlier, was it? No, sorry, it wasn't. It was Love was speaking earlier, saying that, well, we've got no contract. We actually do have a contract.
Yes.
So
Yes,
you might think
exactly.
you don't have a contract. So, but you would have to, yeah. So we are already contracted.
Everyone's contracted in the word. That's why they sent in the missionaries first, and they
Took the Bible in.
colonized, introduced everyone to the Bible through the Go spell, and they were spelling words. The contract. So yes, so Crown copyright the no name, and that you've just claimed that no name as the Crown. So that's the thinking from where we are.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you don't want to be the name, but you want to be the no name. What an oxymoron.